Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The Senate Judiciary Committee just wrapped its third day of public Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. After 10 hours of on-camera testimony, the proceedings now move behind closed doors. Throughout the day, Democrats and some Republicans asked substantive questions on key decisions that likely will come before the court, questions of methodology and approach, while other Republican senators chose to once again air their conspiracy theories and grievances about past confirmation hearings.
The meetings they had with Judge Kavanaugh, it was literally ambushed. He was ambushed. How would you feel if we did that to you?
Senator, I've appreciated the kindness that each of you has shown me.
What do you say to some of them who may doubt that they can one day achieve the same great heights that you have?
I hope to inspire people to try to follow this path because I love this country, because I love the law.
Why isn't it rational to sentence people who have thousands of images on a computer to more time as opposed to somebody who has one or two pictures in the mail? In other words, the more images there are, why wouldn't you want to sentence that person to more time rather than less? Why isn't that rational?
Senator, I've answered this question, and I'll stand on what I already answered.
Your nomination turned out to be a testing ground for conspiracy theories and culture war theories. The more bizarre the charges against you and your family, the more I understand the social media scoreboard lit up yesterday. I'm sorry that we have to go through this. These are not theories that are in the mainstream of America, but they have been presented here as such.
But after enduring 2 days of attacks from Republicans, Senator Cory Booker drove it all home with this supportive message.
It's not going to stop. They're going to accuse you of this and that. Heck, in honor of your person who shares your birthday, you might be called a communist. But don't worry, my sister. Don't worry. God has got you. And how do I know that? Because you're here. And I know what it's taken for you to sit in that seat.
Okay, here's the thing. Supreme Court confirmations are just, they're knockout, drag-out battles. That is the nature of the job. You are vying to be one of just 9 justices with a lifetime appointment, people who essentially have unlimited veto power over the American political system. No one should expect anything less than a contentious process. It's a very, very difficult and serious job. We live in a democracy. This is how it goes. But even by those standards, the hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first black woman ever nominated to the Supreme Court in over 200 years of this country's history, has been stomach-churning. We knew going in that her race and gender would be an issue for some Republicans. But I have to say, I have been taken aback by the facially racist nature of much of the questioning Judge Jackson faced. And I say racist because there's no other way to accurately describe it, whether people want to call it racially tinged or whatever. Yesterday, Jackson repeatedly faced a line of questioning that assumed she was soft on crime or sympathetic to criminals or maybe even liked crime. And the only reason I can determine is that it plays into the assumption that a black person is inherently associated with criminality in some way, which is, of course, racist, one of the oldest, most pernicious and dangerous racist tropes in America. She was also asked multiple times to disown or disavow the views of other black public intellectuals, just other people that also happen to be black who have ideas about the country, specifically the 1619 Project and critical race theory.
You serve on the board of a school that teaches kindergartners, 5-year-old children, that they can choose their gender and teaches them about so-called white privilege. You have made clear that you believe judges must consider critical race theory when deciding how to sentence criminal defendants. Is it your personal hidden agenda to incorporate critical race theory into our legal system?
One portion of the book says babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There is no neutrality. Another portion of the book, they recommend to babies confess when being racist. Do you agree with this book that is being taught with kids that babies are racist?
Does the United States need more or fewer police? Do you know how long the average inmate convicted for a murder serves in prison in America? Let's turn to rape. Do you know how long the average inmate convicted of rape serves in prison? In 2020, murders increased by the fastest rate ever in the United States. Do you know what percentage of murders are solved in America? Do you know what percentage of sexual assaults and rapes go unsolved in this country? Do you think we imprison too many violent criminals or not enough?
Now, Republicans will tell you in their very best gaslighting voice that what you just heard from, say, Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas are just questions about criminal justice asked of a former public defender, trial judge, member of the Sentencing Commission. And to that, I would just say it is a tremendous coincidence that the last time a Democrat nominated a black judge to the Supreme Court, they faced the same line of questioning. It was a long time ago, back in the summer of 1967, when President Lyndon Johnson nominated the legendary civil rights litigator Thurgood Marshall to be the first black justice on the Supreme Court. Two Southern Democrats, Judiciary Committee Chair James Eastland of Mississippi, a legendary and notorious figure, and John McClellan of Arkansas teamed up to derail Marshall's nomination with exactly the same kind of racist questioning that presupposes that a black judge is soft on crime. The idea was that Senator McClellan, a former prosecutor, would be able to trip up Judge Marshall with his line of questioning. McClellan first asked Marshall, quote, "I would ask you if you do not agree with me that the mounting incidence of crime in this nation has reached a critical stage." Doesn't that sound familiar? To which Marshall replied, "I agree with you absolutely." And not satisfied, McClellan kept going, quote, "Do you regard crime as having reached proportions where it endangers or jeopardizes the internal security of our country?" Marshall responded in part, quote, "I am as worried as anybody about the mounting rate of crime, but I do not think it has yet reached the point where it cannot be dealt with and dealt with affirmatively." McClellan, undeterred, went on to ask, quote, "Is my understanding correct that as of now you do not think that the crime rate in this country has reached proportions where it endangers and jeopardizes our internal security?" And after some back and forth, Marshall responded, quote, "I have got faith in my government. I know my government will not let it happen." To which McClellan, a Southern segregationist staring down the first black nominee for the Supreme Court, responded, quote, "Well, I've seen a lot of things happen that I did not think would ever happen too." Whoo, boy. Wonder what he was talking about. Ultimately, the plan by those two vile Southern racists failed. Justice Thurgood Marshall was confirmed and spent more than 2 decades on the court. Just as it seems, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson will ultimately be confirmed. And as the first black woman on the court, it is with her name which will endure. Tom Cotton and Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, they too have put themselves on the record for history, but only as embarrassing footnotes in the historic ascendance of a truly, what appears to be, by every possible metric, gifted American Supreme Court justice. I think, or honestly, at least I hope, that future generations will be able to look back on their behavior during Jackson's confirmation just as we were able to look back on the racist barrel scraping the senators of the 1960s.